Welcome to the Magic and Arts Alliance, a portal into the world of the occult and creativity. I'm your host, Katherine Delrosso, a musician, artist, and professional tarot reader who has traveled to more than 20 countries in order to learn from and practice magic with witches, magicians, and visionary artists. In each episode, I sit down for intimate, in-depth conversations with creators who weave mysticism into their work. Together we explore topics like tarot, the Lima, Kabbalah, astrology, and alchemy, and the many ways which magic is interwoven with writing, music, visual art, and poetry. Whether you're just beginning your path or deepening your practice, the Magic and Arts Alliance welcomes you into the circle where the esoteric meets the creative. All right, so I would like to introduce today's guest. Kyndyll Lackey is the founder of the Scarlet Temple, a private invitation-only community exploring the intersection of sex and religion. She is also ordained as a minister by the Universal Life Church and the Mercy Junction Justice and Peace Center. She is a Reiki master teacher and holds a master's degree in social work and creative writing and women's studies, and spent over a decade working with survivors of abuse and trauma as a professional social worker. Her book, Beyond as Above, So Below, Understanding Hermetic Tarot Through the Music of Maynard James Keenan, is available via Amazon in the US and in Canada. So there's her formal introduction, and that just captures, just give people a little bit of insight into, your history, your expertise, your education. But there is so much that I want to know about you. So let me just back up for a minute and say that I have had the pleasure of speaking with Kyndyll twice through her tarot readings. I found her on Instagram, and I was just bewitched by I think I saw one of her reels where it was for the song Rose by Perfect Circle. And oh my god, if you guys don't follow Kyndyll on Instagram, I highly recommend it, because you always get some cool piece of information about tarot, but also she's just really hot and has really beautiful imagery in her reels. So
Thank you.
yeah. Okay, so I'm sorry, I'm just gonna keep talking for a minute before I jump into questions, but
Sure.
okay, so my experience getting readings from Kyndyll have been extraordinary. I've gotten a lot of tarot readings through the years, and some of them really stand out. I mean, really, I've only had 3 that stand out, and 2 of them were from Kyndyll. I mean, sometimes, things just click and connect in a way that you feel like the universe is really talking to you, and it's just undeniable when something like that happens. So I ordered Kyndyll's book, Beyond as Above, So Below, and I have been learning tarot through your book. I What I really love about this is that it's not just a guide to say this card means this. It goes deep, right? The levels of understanding are really perfect for a beginner student of the occult, because you incorporate alchemy, um, uh, Hebrew, you incorporate astrology, and probably even more that I'm not even mentioning. But okay, and I'll just say one more thing before I get into asking you questions. Kyndyll is extremely knowledgeable occultist. And speaking to her is a pleasure, because you get the sense that she knows her stuff. She's been studying this for a long time, and she doesn't come across as ever trying to lecture you or show you how smart or knowledgeable she is. She just She just is. And that's something that's kind of rare that I found. And speaking with occultists, sometimes uh, people are really desperate to show you how smart and knowledgeable they are, and so they will just spew a lot of information at you in an attempt to impress you, I guess. But Kyndyll is just super easy to talk to, down to earth, and I always learn something new when we speak. So let me ask you, okay, I definitely want to get into your book, but I also just want to learn more about you and your journey with the occult. So I think I'm going to start by asking you. So okay, this is an obvious question, but where are you from?
I'm from Nashville,
Nashville.
um, Nashville, Tennessee, and have lived here all my life. And yeah, first of all, thank you so much for that introduction, and thank you for all those kind words because that boy, that means so much, and I really deeply appreciate that. You made my whole week with that introduction alone. So thank you so much. But yeah, I'm from Nashville and have lived here all my years and have watched the city grow and change quite a bit over time.
Wow. So I've only visited Nashville a couple of times, but am I'm imagining that when you were getting into the occult, it must have was it hard for you to find people to connect with? And when did you begin anyway?
Yeah, I got started very shortly after high school. I converted to paganism, to Wicca, and started really looking for community. And you're right, finding a pagan or a cult or even New Age kind of a community in Nashville in the late '90s was not easy, but there were even then a couple of bookstores. The main one, the biggest one, and the longest running one was a shop called Magical Journey, which we kind of discovered shortly after high school. My friends and I did, and we started spending all of our time there. And that was where we met other people who were like us. And there was a little, I think every city's got one of these little corners to it where there's just a few really edgy or indie kind of businesses that are in this one little geographical area, and they attract all of the weirdos, all of those of us who don't really seem to fit in anywhere else. And that was the area around Magical Journey in Nashville in the late '90s. And so um, I started uh, I started barraging them with job applications because it didn't take me very long to realize that this was a place I wanted to be a lot, and I wanted to spend more time there. And so um, I think I just bullied them into finally giving me an interview after putting in like 3 or 4 applications. The owner called me and was like, "All right, just come in for an interview." Um, so I started working there shortly after high school and worked there through college. And that was where I first started to learn how to read tarot, where I first started professionally reading in 2002. And the beautiful thing about that shop was that uh, it was designed to be a way shower place, a hub for a community of people who were seeking. And in order to be a member of staff there, you had to know a little bit about every path,
Hmm.
every path that anyone could potentially come in looking for insight or direction on. We had to at least be able to know a little bit of something about that path and then point people in the direction of more information to keep them going on their magical journey. And that was the whole point. So in the course of doing that, I learned not only about Wicca, which I was already practicing, but I learned about things like um, Jewish mysticism, Kabbalah, mystical Christianity, the Gnostic school of thought, um, animism, all different kinds of pagan faiths, all different kinds of indigenous faiths, and everything that resulted from the mixtures of all those things. So we had to know a little bit about voodoo and Santeria, and we had to know a little bit about Satanism, and we needed to know about the Lama and Aleister Crowley, and we really did develop a solid background in all those different paths, plus all of the major schools of thought around magic, um, from chaos to ceremonial to practical and everything in between. And yeah, it really started me from a place of I guess relativism is probably a really good word for it, because it made me understand that there are parallels across all of these different pathways, and that truth that you might find in one path would be mirrored somewhere else in another path, and that they were all valid and they all had validity to them. And the point was to be able to broaden your thinking enough to be able to recognize those commonalities. Um, so yeah, it was a good start. I'm really thankful to the people who I worked with there. I'm really thankful to the two owners who are no longer with us. Nancy and Willie both were just in Nancy Cushman and Willie Jones were both just super instrumental in me getting on the path that I'm on now.
I can hear the love in your voice. I can tell that they really meant a lot to you.
They did. They
Yeah.
really did. Yeah. And some of my closest and longest running friendships came from that place, and yeah, forever grateful.
Well, that's incredible. I mean, it sounds like you know exactly how lucky you are to have had that community and that way of that education.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
So, so, oh gosh, I can imagine that over the years, especially having gathered so much information about different types of magic and different pathways, ha- have the topics that resonated with you the most changed over the years?
Yeah, yeah, they have, and in some weird ways, they've come back around too.
Oh, yeah,
They've kind
of
of
course.
made a complete circle, because when I first started, I think most everyone who gets into uh, the path of exploring alternative religions, particularly folks who are interested in, shall we say, left hand path ideologies, they typically wind up starting out with Wicca. It's been my observation. And that was very true for me as well. And so, but shortly um, after I'd spent a few years practicing that, um, as a course of work, got exposed to some other ideas and really started studying Gnosticism. And Gnosticism and Hermeticism are very similar paths. They have some divergences, but they have some similarities. And when I began reading tarot, the deck that called to me was Aleister Crowley and Frida Harris's Thoth deck. Um, it was the one. It was like when I saw it, it was like that's for me. And I didn't know what the title of it was. I had no idea. The person who showed it to me didn't know. So I spent some time trying to find that. And then once I found that, it's like I was on this, for lack of a better word, I was on this journey. And so Wicca led to me learning about the goddess, which then led to me learning about Mary Magdalene, which then led to Gnosticism and then Hermeticism. And then when I really started getting um, my teeth on the Thoth deck and really started digging into the symbolism that it contains, um, I then really began to understand how Hermeticism and Kabbalah and Thelema were all represented in the symbolism of that really rich, um, very highly detailed and symbolic renditions of those archetypes in the Thoth deck. And that just became an entirely a whole new level of things came up from there. And so now I primarily think of myself as a Babylonic hermeticist. So
Mm.
I have a kind of a dual pathway that is, um, um, if you thought about it Kabbalistically, it's kind of like a balance between Netzach and Hod in a way. But or you could characterize it as between the sacral and the communicative, the throat chakra, or you could even look at it as so far as between like an intellectual wisdom and a felt somatic embodied wisdom, dual pathway between those two things.
Wow, that's fascinating. I think I'm gonna want to ask you to come back and tell us about your Babylonic path. And
Oh yeah, I'd love to.
great. Okay, so let's get into this book a little. I'm just okay. I know I already said that I love it, but I've really been enjoying at night. I have a, just sitting down and reviewing the cards that I've already read about, listening to the songs, looking at, the next card. Sometimes I'll just draw a random one and see what the vibe is. And I mean, it's incredible how often it really resonates with what's happening in my life. Or even if I take them in order, which I did the major arcana, I'm
Hmm.
like, how is it possible that even taking these in order is still it's still hitting the nose on that, the nail on the head. So, okay. What I One of the things that I really like about this book is your introduction, where you give us sort of a base level understanding of Kabbalah, and which is super helpful for beginners like me. And you even get into explaining why Aleister Crowley, you know, which cards he changed from the Rider Waite Smith deck to the Thoth deck, and why. So that's great information to have, because that's definitely one of the first questions that I think people are going to come across when comparing those decks. So sorry, I know there are some ambulances going by. It's kind of loud, but
It's barely audible to me for what that is worth.
okay. Yeah. So, all right. Can you can you tell us, for the viewers who are not familiar with your book, what d- hmm, what inspired you to write this book?
I am so in addition to having always been a weird kid who was into weird, inexplainable things like dreams and horoscopes and psychics, I was and have always been um, a music fan, and probably that's putting it mildly. I was raised by two audiophiles. I grew up to be an audiophile myself. And so music is ultimately the foundation of my love of writing, of my love of poetry, of that music is the art that, even though I can't play an instrument, I cannot sing, but I have a deep and abiding affection for music and its impact on the emotions, the mind, the soul, the evolution of a person's life, and how much music is a soundtrack for everything that we experience. Um, and so, yeah, I was obsessed with music from a very young age, and was a fan because I was raised by young parents who were, late 70s rocker kind of parents. Um, they introduced me to a wide variety of what most people would call rock slash metal slash progressive rock or prog rock.
Oh,
And that was the steady diet that I grew up on. So when Tool,
what?
yeah, oh, yeah.
That's so cool.
I, my, I was one of those lucky kids that was listening to quote unquote good music my whole life. And when Tool came around, I was a really, really young teenager queen when Tool came out. And um, it kicked off just an absolute lifelong obsession with Maynard's music. That of course started with Tool and continued on with A Perfect Circle and with Puscifer. And what I found about music, just as much as tarot, those two systems kind of became ways that I interpreted the world around me. I I'm betting you're probably this way too. You probably speak often in music lyrics. Song lyrics are like a common language. And tarot became a common language in much the same way as song lyrics. And so what wound up inspiring me to write the book was I was listening to a playlist of Maynard's music that I had put together of just songs that I personally liked. And I was listening to it one night, and it occurred to me that it really hit me anew that A Perfect Circle's debut album, Myrda was such an incredible departure from Maynard's work in Tool that it had to mean something. It had to have been purposeful in some way. It had to carry something about that. And um it occurred to me that what he was really exploring in Myrda was the feminine
Mhm.
and was an aspect of energy that he prior to that had never really ventured into. And the more that I thought about the meaning of the title, the translation, Mer de Nom is French and it means sea of names. Um, so the reference to the sea, and I was at that point, I was getting really, really um heavy into dissecting the tarot in terms of Kabbalah. It made me realize that Mer de Nom was a perfect exploration of the Sephira of Binah, which on the Tree of Life represents the kind of the primordial mother, the divine feminine aspect, the divine feminine face of God, which is neither male nor female and is both at the same time. So um, I thought that was really interesting. And then the more I picked at it, the more I thought about, I wonder if there are other similar correlations between his music and the Tree of Life. And
Mm.
those things just started falling into place. And before I knew it, I realized that not only could I map all of his albums to the Sephira on, or the Sephirot on the Tree of Life, I could go even a step further and could attribute one of his songs to every single one of the 78 cards of the tarot, which are also arranged
And
on the
and
tree.
not only could you, but they fit so extraordinarily well.
Yes. Yes.
You said in your book that you could really take any system or any album or any body of work from any artist and find the correlations to Kabbalah. But the songs that you've chosen and the correspondences that you found are I don't want to say eerily accurate, but they, even from an outsider's perspective, they fit really, really well. Yeah.
Yeah, they do. They do. And you could speculate about that, about whether that was intentional or
Right.
accidental, but I will say this. My goal in writing the book was to never put words in his mouth, to never speculate on who or what or
Mhm.
how it related to his personal life.
Yeah.
My goal was really to analyze his work as though it were a body of poetry and to analyze it in a similar way around narrative and symbolism, not something tying to his personal life. And the reason why that matters is because we're talking about the songs in terms of archetypes.
Hmm.
And you don't have to deliberately set out to evoke archetypes in art, it just naturally happens. And that was really more or less my point around saying you could do this with any artist. Now, he makes it easy because he's known to incorporate esoteric concepts, not just in his lyrics, but Tool does it in their artwork and in their stage presentation and virtually every aspect of their marketing and merchandising and
Mm,
offerings to the public have
mm,
esoteric, strong esoteric implications. But you also find those particularly as in Puscifer as well, and to a more hidden effect in A Perfect Circle.
okay. Wow. Okay, so um something that I learned through reading your book and my beginning my journey studying the tarot, the Thoth tarot. I think you can say any. I've heard it said either way, Thoth or
Yeah.
Thoth. Um, I didn't realize how deep the symbolism gets and the different systems that are that correspond to each card. Can you tell us a little bit about um, the different types of systems which are included in the Thoth?
Yeah, yeah. I think you really you were all over it earlier when you were talking about it. So Thoth, because it is um so the Thelemic worldview goes back to or is heavily influenced by Golden Dawn Rosicrucianism, and that is heavily in turn was originally influenced heavily by Hermeticism. So that ancient school of thought of Hermeticism carries through all the way, right? And the basic tenets of Hermeticism are this notion that that we're essentially living in a fractal, right? That we can find correlations between um, occurrences and existence at every level. And those things are kind of like higher octaves of one another, right? Um, and so, incumbent upon that, or included in that, is this idea that if you take any esoteric system, and I mean like a system of thought, you can find its equivalent in any other system of thought. So, in the Thoth Tarot, you've got everything from astrology, uh, Kabbalah, numerology is present in the tarot, and as is the Hebrew alphabet, and the symbolism of the letters in the Hebrew alphabet, because uh, that alphabet is constructed to be both not just a spelling system, but it's also a mathematical system, and as well as a symbolic system, because each letter is actually a word. It's tied to an image or an idea. Um, so, and then there is all different kinds of deities and different kinds of sacred geometry. The I Ching factors heavily into
Wow,
the tarot. So there are several different systems, and all of them are tied together because there are matching symbols that represent the same thing in all of those different systems.
that
So
just blows my mind.
oh, and
That is
it's
so
what makes
cool.
it so wonderful is that you understand that once you learn one of these, so like once you learn astrology, it makes it easier for you to learn tarot. And once you understand tarot, vice versa, you can learn astrology. You can learn Kabbalah very easily once you've got a grasp on a tarot
Okay.
deck because those
Mhm.
cards live in the tree.
You ever find that you sometimes what you read or learn is just sort of validating an intuitive something that you intuited, right?
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
I don't know for sure, but I suspect that this symbol means this,
yeah,
or there's a strong correlation here, or
yes.
you read a book and you're like, wow, that is what that means. Someone else thinks so too.
Yeah, actually, absolutely. I think most people get to have that experience when they dive. really into esotericism to any degree and they start studying it and really just mulling it over. I think when people really start um, getting excited and surprised by all this is when they start learning things like, well, you can correlate deities from any pantheon to the major arcana of the tarot. And you can therefore also correlate crystals and gemstones to every one of those cards. And then there are plants and there are animals and there are aromatics um, that correlate to all of these archetypes because all of these different things elicit the same kinds of vibe, if you will, uh,
Mhm.
in humanity in
Mm.
general.
I love that. So I would like to look at a specific card, and I think today, March 26th, is I believe it's the sixth day of the Thelemic Holy Season. And
Mhm.
today's card is the Devil.
Hmm?
Could we take a look at that and just dig in and see what correspondences we find?
Oh,
And then
absolutely.
great.
Absolutely. So I've got my copy here too, just so I can look at it while you're looking at it as well. So yeah, for folks who are listening or watching, I've got my book opened up here to the page. And just for just a little side note here, the deck that illustrates the book is people will be surprised to see that it is not the Thoth deck.
Mhm.
And that's due to a variety of issues, not the least of which is some copywriting and permissions kinds of
Mhm.
stuff, but also because I was really looking forward to the opportunity of working with my friend M. Moline, who designed the book, the tarot deck that is the illustration in the book. And that tarot deck is called Tabula Mundi. And Tabula Mundi is a modern retelling of the Thoth deck. She kept a lot of the same symbolism, but she also reinterpreted things um, through a uniquely modern lens as well. It's like kind of a carrying that Thelemic ideology through to modern times. So that deck is what's the illustration, and I would like to grab, if I could, the
Yes.
card because I would like to show that as well because it's just a really stunning card. The Devil card in the Tabula Mundi deck is a stunner. It is extremely powerful, but also incredibly sexy.
Mm.
Um, let
I've
me.
actually, I mean, I think I've noticed that a
It's
lot of
kind of hard to miss.
everything, there's a lot of sexy symbolism, and I mean, this whole esoteric world is just sexy. Oh
It
my god.
is. It is, and personally, I think it's because inherent in studying esotericism and the occult is the understanding that the basis of magic is sex, and that the basis of sex is magic. That all different kinds of sexual intercourse, and by that we're merely talking about literally like this element and this element, which are two different and opposing elements combine to
Mhm.
create a third unique element. That's what sex is. We just happen to use it as the shorthand terminology for a particular act, but
That's
it's
right.
so much more than that, and that all magic is predicated on this notion that, and so here's the devil card in the
Let's
Tabula
look at
Mundi.
this.
All
Beautiful.
magic is predicated on this idea that when you combine two different chemicals, two different materials, they will have a reaction to one another. And when they do, they will produce something, some third thing that is unlike either of its parents. So, what is going on in that devil card? What is the devil card and what does it represent? So, first of all, the devil is correspondent to the sign of Capricorn.
Mhm.
Capricorn is ruled by Saturn, and so a great deal of the symbolism in that card is um, focused on Saturn. Saturn is a planet that is it's about limitation. and discipline. It's the do your homework, eat your veggies, do your chores, earn your reward. And it's the lesson bringer, the taskmaster, the planet in our solar system that is whose influence is responsible for making us face reality in
Mm.
some way or another. It's also tied to time for the same kind of reason. Um, in its original understanding, Saturn was Chronos, time. And so the traditional title of this card is Lord of the Gates of Matter and Child of the Forces of Time. So, where most people see this card and think of something scary,
Right.
I see this card and think of ambition, the
Mm.
drive to materialize things at any cost, the drive to produce, to create, to conquer. Again, if you think about Capricorn, it's the sign of the goat, the mountain goat that will scale any height and is unafraid of any mountain you put in front of it. It's going to climb it. And so, in its highest octave, in its most positive dignity, this card is about the drive and the need to accomplish ambition.
Mm.
When it gets ugly is when that pendulum swings too far and we move into things like workaholism
Mhm.
or addiction to sex or addiction to gambling or really addiction to anything.
Mhm.
Um, the loss of your own personal sense of will to an addiction or to something that you cannot control or overcome.
Mhm. Mhm.
So that's what's going on in the card. And
Mm. Wow.
when
Makes
you
me think
look at
of
that, yeah,
control. Like, because I think what fuels a lot of addiction is wanting to control how you feel. I mean, if because when we partake in whatever the substance is, whether it's alcohol or sex or whatever, I mean, really what we're doing is we're attempting to control the way that we feel.
yes,
And whenever we do those ambitious tasks, whether it's work or art projects or whatever it is, our will, we're strongly trying to control and
yeah.
make force our will upon reality.
Absolutely. And there's a great big piece of this card too that is related to materiality. So
Mm.
reveling in all that is material. Reveling and that sounds like for most of us with our modern ears, we hear that
Mhm.
and we think of materialism, the idea of exalting wealth and riches and abundance.
Okay.
And that's not really what we're talking about here. We're talking
Hmm.
about materiality. So, this notion of reveling in the miracle that literally must take place in order for an object to be something that we can tangibly touch in this reality. All of the factors that must come together and align just so for there to be, say, a table for us to sit our things on.
That's right.
All the different elements that must combine for to make its way from spirit down to an impulse, down to a blueprint, down to a thing that somebody actually builds and designs. So the devil revels in everything
So
that
I,
exists.
I'm going to take us on a little sidetrack.
Yeah.
What you just described, and you did this, so it made me think of you're going down chakras, or maybe it was down the middle pillar of the tree of life.
Yeah.
But there's this, I can't remember, and I want to learn more about this. I feel like you'll know the answer. When you look at the tree of life, I think the top, the first three
Mhm.
sphere are, I think I heard someone attribute those different ideas to the different Sephira. Do you know what I'm talking about? Can
Yeah,
you?
so the top three that you're talking about, the supernal triad,
Okay.
consist of Keter at the top, and then if you're looking at it on a page, down and to the right would be Hokmah, and directly across from it would be Binah. Those three Sephiroth together represent what most people would think of as the Father, Son, and the Holy Ghost, right? For our purposes and for most esotericist purposes, it's better understood as the mother, the father, and the child,
Hmm.
or the whole, the all Keter, and as it's broken out into its masculine and feminine faces.
Oh, interesting.
So those represent kind of, we go from, when you work your way down the tree of life, you are working your way from Godhead at the very top, the mind of God, all the way down in the very bottom to where we are sitting right now in our homes, in our chairs, on this plane, on this earth, on this rock, revolving around another rock, right? So we're moving from the general to the specific as we move. So, and from the ethereal to the material at the bottom. And we're also acknowledging that all matter is created of energy. So at the top of the tree is nothing but pure energy. And as it makes its way down the tree, it becomes denser and slower and firmer, but also murkier. And then it ultimately becomes something solid that exists here that we can touch. And
That,
so the devil is the Lord of all that we can see and touch, and he revels in it all, good,
mm,
bad, ugly,
yeah,
disgusting, beautiful, charming, everything.
love that.
And it's intimidating to a lot of people to think about some deity or some entity that would revel in the things that we personally find to be scary, threatening, disgusting, dirty, undesirable. But to the,
It's a miracle.
yeah,
All of it. Every, I mean, he's
all
done.
of it.
Yeah.
What is necessary for even the most vile, disgusting things that we can think of to exist is a series of miracles. And so the song that to me fit this archetype the best out of Maynard's catalog is a song called Breathe. That's a Puscifer song, and it's on an EP called Donkey Punch the Night. And the song essentially is a reminder that we are living, breathing organisms that have needs. Those needs are neither good nor bad, they just are. So we all need to eat, we need to sleep, we need to excrete, we need to drink, we need to have sex, we need to be in communion. We like all those things are realities, and we as humans, in our effort to speed up decision making, tend to pass judgment on things as good or bad.
So we do.
We separate things into dichotomies,
Mhm.
and the whole point of the song is um, that you should not be afraid of parts of you that are natural, that you should not shun those aspects of you, that there's nothing wrong or abnormal about the desire to commune with other people, that there's nothing wrong or bad about the need to feed yourself, the need to, and the song says over and over, don't forget to breathe. Don't forget that this is just part of being human, and it really truly is something neutral and only carries the value that you assign it.
Wow. It's such a great reminder.
It really is. It is. And a great song. And it is like a super sexy song because like uh you know the sound of the song is very sensual. It has a very sensual beat and tempo, and then the song speaks to surrendering to your hunger and letting your body feed. And that can be a metaphor, that can be literal, that can be all kinds of analogies. They all fit.
Wow. So freaking cool. And there's this sense of balance I think that's needed. And when I look at the Thoth card, it seems very symmetrical. And there's so on one hand, you do need to feed the, acknowledge that you are human in this world, you have needs. On the other hand, you can take it into an extreme, which is, can be detrimental. Um,
Oh yeah, harmful. Yeah, for
yeah,
sure.
hard the word. So maybe
Yeah.
not.
And
Yeah.
also, yeah, and for those who are not aware of what this card looks like, I'm grabbing it out of the deck too so that they can see it. And so, to a certain extent, the symmetry of which you speak is kind of an anatomical symmetry. It's
Hmm.
very difficult to deny that what we're looking at here is a penis and
Yeah.
testicles with a accompanied by a goat. Um, so yeah, there is absolutely symmetry present in in that. And I
Mm.
think that you can find that symmetry present in pretty much every card.
So, okay, changing topics a little bit and
Yeah.
wondering how we're doing on time. I'm enjoying this so much. Let's
Mm.
see. Okay, good. We still have a little time. Okay. So, I would like to know how you use, okay, I'm assuming that you do ritual or ceremony using your deck, using your tarot cards. And could you tell us a little bit about how you might design or create ritual using the correspondences?
Oh, I love that. Yeah. And I'm going to be thrilled to talk a little bit about that. So, yeah, correspondences is exactly where I go. So, the very first thing that we can take into account with the tarot is that all of them, each card is actually also tied to a chronological period of the year. So, in addition to this being this interview taking place during the Thelemic holy days, there are also other considerations about timing in the year. So, for instance, the Devil card is tied to Capricorn, the sign of Capricorn, which the sun is in Capricorn season from the winter solstice through approximately January 19th um, every year. And so that's the first thing, the first way that um, I can and often do use tarot in ritual work is that if I am uh like for instance if I'm doing work that's observing a lunar event like a solstice or an equinox, I'm going to pull the card that corresponds to that period of the year. Same thing with an astrological period. If I'm trying to manifest something in the future, I might use the card that ties to that time period when I want it to come.
Mm,
Um, so that's the first kind of layer and the easiest and the most obvious one. Then beyond that, we can start looking at, is a particular ritual trying to work with a specific planetary energy? Then you would pull the card that corresponds to that planet. If I am finding myself, ooh, another really good way of using these cards in ritual work is that for for those of us who do daily tarot card pulls, where you draw a card or maybe even two cards every morning and you look for it evidence throughout your day, right? When you have a regular practice of that, sometimes you're going to come into periods of time where the same card keeps
mm,
coming up over and over and over again. Might be multiple days in a row, despite shuffling really thoroughly. Might be multiple times in a period of time that it's just too many times to be. It's noticeable that there's a
mm,
pattern there of that card resurfacing over and over again. And what it's doing is it's kind of triggering you to an aspect of that archetype that is active somehow in your life,
mm,
perhaps in multiple ways. So there have been times when I've had a quote unquote stalker card that keeps coming up and I don't understand why. Sometimes it's immediately obvious why that card is coming up. Oh, my mother is sick and I'm drawing the Empress card a lot, right? But sometimes you get a card that just doesn't make sense. You've studied the card over and over, and you're not really getting any insight as to how this is some sort of an ongoing pattern or
mm,
represents some place where you're falling short. So I might perform some sort of a scrying ritual or a meditation in which I'm trying to go and speak to the archetype of that card and ask it what information it's trying to convey to me. That's another really good, profound way to utilize tarot and magic. It can also be used purely as altar symbolism. Just putting it on the altar to represent whatever energy that you're trying to bring in. Um, yeah, it's tarot is a profoundly um, versatile
Mm.
tool in any esotericist toolbox. Can be used for so much.
Oh gosh. Yeah, it seems like there's just so many different possibilities. And thank you. I feel like you answered the question because um yeah, whether it's looking at, the card for this time period or time period in the future, or maybe there's some type of something that you want to bring about. I think that's fascinating. I mean, I think uh okay, so like this time, wherever we are in this time, this day, the card that's representing this day and this time and this space that we're in,
Mhm.
there's always a lesson to be learned here, and a divine experience that we're having. But um we do often use magic to help us, I don't know, maybe bring things about, or change the outcomes of things. And I don't have much experience with this at all, but it's something that, of course, I think of anyone who studies magic, they're like, I want to do a spell, I want to,
Yeah.
make someone fall in love with me, or I want to get the job, or something like that.
Yeah. And I could totally throw, yeah, those are frequent. Yes. So like for instance, let's say that you were trying to become pregnant. You might pull out cards that represent, so if you are a womb having person and you are trying to become pregnant yourself,
I
you
see.
might pull out cards like the Ace of Cups, which
Mm.
is in and of itself a womb, right? Um, and also represents the beginning of emotional things, the love that you would develop with your child, right? So there's that.
Mm.
You could pull out the Three of Cups, which represents the emotional bond between perhaps three people, mother, father, child.
Mm.
Um, you could pull off the Princess of Discs, who is the last of the princesses, and princesses are all tied to the element of earth. Again, speaking to that materiality and that tangibility, and she represents the total possibilities of what can be manifest here on earth. Conversely, if you were looking to impregnate somebody else, the devil card is certainly an excellent example because it is virile masculine energy.
Mm.
You could pull out the Ace of Wands, which, if the cup is the womb, the wand would be the penis, or the instrument, the rod of creation. Um, it sounds like it's elementary, but we're speaking in terms of symbolism that our subconscious minds get.
Mm.
And
That's
our
right.
subconscious minds understand the comparative symbolism between a cup and a pregnant woman's belly.
That's right.
So if that's what we're doing, is we're in any kind of ritual work at all, whether you're using tarot or not, you are you are creating a sense of drama and intensity using primal symbolism that your
Mm.
subconscious mind gets. Because when we're doing magic, that's what we're talking to. We already know consciously what we want. And for whatever reason, it's not happening with our conscious efforts. So what magic does is kind of go in the back door and speak to the subconscious mind and get it on board with what the conscious mind wants. Talk to it directly, kind of like dreams. So
Wow. Oh, so
instead
that's
of analyzing your dream, you're telling your mind what to dream vis-a-vis the ritual.
yes. And this is such a great segue because I'm writing a book on the topic of dreams. And which is a whole nother, it's probably a whole nother series of episodes.
Yeah.
But I wanted to ask you about dreaming. Have you interacted with the major arcana in your dreams, or any other type of interactions you've had with tarot in your dreams?
Oh yeah. Yeah. For sure. I have and I think everybody really has even just because that's the way archetypes and symbolism work. So somebody might say, I had a conversation in a dream with a queen, and I
That's
might understand that to be I had a conversation with the empress.
hmm
Um, so I think that really is present for everyone. But I have had like so when the original idea of the book came, um, the day following, or maybe 2 or 3 days after I originally had the idea, and I I had done the most basic rudimentary sketch out of the correspondences between songs and cards and started the list but hadn't completed it. I had done enough to know that there was something there worth exploring, but that was as far as I had gotten. And about, I think it was maybe 2 days after that night, um, I had a dream in which um, I was having a conversation with the archetype that I would understand to represent Thoth,
whoa.
where that was like it was a moment of like, yeah, so go do
And
the
I under and from what I've read, you associate Thoth with Maynard, that archetype.
I do
That's
think
so
that he
cool.
heavily and he does heavily
Mhm.
embody that archetype. I don't think it's the only archetype that he embodies or that
Oh
he
yeah.
works with, but I definitely see correlation there between his work, his ideology, and that particular entity. Yeah.
So I please continue with the dream. I interrupted you.
Oh yeah, no. He it was just one of those moments where the archetype was saying to me, you know, I I I have an assignment for you. Are you willing to take on the assignment? And in the dream, I was like, yeah.
Oh my
um,
god.
and waking up from that was like, okay, so there is something to this, and I'm going to flesh it fully out. And by the time I was about halfway through fleshing it out, I knew that it needed to be a book because there were too many good juicy details and quirky coincidences. Too many of the pieces fit together to
Mhm.
at the risk of putting
So
too fine a point on it.
when you were writing this book, were you and writing that current, were you overwhelmed at all with the amount of correspondences and things that you were experiencing? And how do you ground yourself if you find that the energy is too much?
I um I didn't experience overwhelm in terms of the correspondences. I experienced overwhelm in the actual writing
Okay.
portion because this was the first time I'd ever written a piece this long. I'm a by this point I'm a professional student, been through grad school a couple of times, and so I'm no stranger to writing long papers. But writing a 400-page book was a lot,
Yeah.
and there were significant. It took me 4 years to finish this and get it published. And along the way, the things that made me stop had less to do with the topic and far more to do with my own sense of self confidence about whether I could uh, carry the message well, whether I was capable of conveying everything that I saw and felt and the force and the power of it. And was anybody else going to care, or was this just something that only made sense to, or mattered, or amused me? So there were, I think, I think everyone who writes a book or produces an album or creates a work of art that they then intend to share inevitably comes, or even owns a business. they're going to have these moments of self-doubt of whether or not they're even capable of bringing the vision to fruition.
Mm. I'm getting emotional. Whew. Thank
Yeah.
you for sharing that. It's very vulnerable and it's really real and it's very relatable as an artist. Um, yeah, I'm working on an album and it's totally the challenge of I'm having, all those things, imposter syndrome,
Oh
you know,
yeah.
ever gonna do this? And even if I do it, I'm gonna spend so much time. Is it even gonna matter? Is it even gonna listen to it? Is it gonna help anyone? Like all those
Yeah.
things. So
All those things.
really, really appreciate you sharing that. It never even crossed my mind that you went through that. And of course you did. I mean,
Oh yeah.
it was like, I mean, this is a 400-page book. Good God. 4 years. That's fantastic.
Oh,
Thank
thank
you.
you.
Well, I just
Yeah.
want to thank you for persevering. Because, I mean, God, if you didn't, well, I may have never met you. Um, I I'm just enjoying the book tremendously. You're inspiring. Just hearing what you went through in this process, that definitely inspires me, and I'm sure it's going to inspire a lot of other people as well.
Thank you. Thank you. And the other thing that I really was spending a lot of time kind of processing and contending with is that um the whole book is based on the works of two artists. Well, really four artists. So Mr. Keenan, and Min Moline, the creator of the deck that illustrates the book, and then also Aleister Crowley and Frida Harris. Um, all I really feel like I did was synthesize their works. And so I spent a lot of time, one, making sure that my approach was respectful of the material that other people had put themselves into their lives, their everything, their essence is in this art that I did not create. And I am only analyzing and synthesizing what they have created and commenting on it and perhaps using it to illustrate ideas. I want to do that in a way that's respectful. I want to do it in a way that encourages people who are interested in their work to vigorously pursue their work by purchasing it from them.
Mhm.
And I want to make sure that I'm not doing anything to, as I said earlier, put words in anyone's mouth, to ascribe anyone else's intent or describe or relate it to something that I don't know anything about, because it's their life, it's their expertise, it's their personhood, and not mine. So I did spend I got licenses and permissions to be able to quote from lyrics and to be able to use these images. That was a long process too.
I was gonna ask, oh my God, just that alone could have been barrier that would have had to stop.
I was lucky. I recognize that I'm extremely privileged, and I had the ability and the wherewithal and the access to be able to find an attorney who specializes in intellectual property, to work with her to obtain the proper licenses and permissions in order to be able to quote. And because of that, that's I could not quote directly from every single song that's worked with in the book,
I see.
um, because it would have been extremely cost prohibitive to be able to pay for the licenses. So, but also I want the reader to be involved. And if I had included all the lyrics in the book and
That's
all
right.
the songs, the book would be 1,000 pages long.
True.
Um, but I wanted the reader to have the experience of discovery for themselves too. So that, you look up the lyrics and you're listening to the song while you're looking at the lyrics, and you're thinking about the memories that you have associated with the song, if any, or how the song makes you feel, or what kinds of images come up in your mind when you're listening to it. That experiential piece of reading the book is irreplaceable, and there is no amount of explaining that I could do that's going to even approach what happens in your brain while you're synthesizing all those different pieces of information.
Mm.
It's unique to you. It speaks directly to your life
That's
experience. And like any spiritual experience that a person has, the more you try to convey it to others, the more it cheapens it and the more it dilutes it. So I was really hopeful that the book would encourage people to go on that journey for themselves and to experience it for themselves. And then probably, hopefully, to turn around and, I don't know, change it, make it theirs. Maybe you like a different song for a particular card. Maybe you think that this song fits better over here. Maybe you don't even want to use Maynard at all. Maybe you want to use somebody different who's got a large catalog. There are
Or you want to
tons.
write your own songs.
Yeah. You want to write your own songs? You want to illustrate your own deck?
That's
Um, yeah. The more personal that is to you, the more enriching and meaningful, and
Oh,
the more likely you are to pick up tarot and use it as a tool for your
oh,
own.
wow. That's cool. I've heard it said that students of tarot are encouraged to create their own deck.
They are. If you are on a formal ceremonial magic path at one point or another, you will be required to.
Hmm.
And uh, from my part, I'm not a visual artist, but my medium is in words. And so to me, this book
Yes.
represents me making my own tarot deck because
Yes.
in my head, every time I do a reading, the songs are playing in my mind. Every time I hear a song out in the wild, I know what card that's being referred to, and it makes me go, I wonder if that's present or
Hmm.
applicable to what's happening to me right now in some way that I should maybe be paying attention to.
That's so
Um,
cool.
it is. And all this stuff is cool. That's what makes it so much fun. It's what makes the journey worth going on for yourself instead of just reading it. Experiencing it is so much better and so much more fun. And that's what I really hope that people can.
I really appreciate the energy that you bring. Period. Because there's, I don't know. I feel like part of when I started studying magic all 6 months ago or whatever. It's probably been a little longer than that, but I feel like I encountered this dark aesthetic and this dark feeling. And I mean, I know we're not supposed to be judging what's good or bad or dark or light, but it seems like I am a joyful person. I exude love and light and energy and all that hippie stuff. And when I started kind of like getting into some of this occult study, I felt like I was almost putting myself in a box of like, oh, now I'm getting into the dark side of things. Like there's this, you know, Satanism and, dark, mysterious, spooky stuff.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm like, but I'm not willing to compromise. I'm not willing to give up the sparkly, light, loving part of myself. And that
Oh,
I just think that you are a great example of a person who is, a um an accomplished occultist who knows who you are, and you're not pretending to be some, like, I don't know, um anyone else. It just seems like your authentic love is shining through, and whatever you're speaking about, especially, well, I mean, magic is what we've been talking about. But anyway, thank you. I feel like in that way, I really appreciate your authenticity, and it gives me permission to be my warm and loving self.
yes, absolutely. And thank you for that. I really, really appreciate that. And I think where people kind of get, the word occult just means unknown or hidden. And we naturally associate that which we don't know or is hidden from us with darkness because it is not light in the open. It's not in broad daylight and visible to us. And so therefore it's hidden. Um the whole point of Hermeticism, in my personal view, and where I'm at right now on this journey of mine, is understanding that the goal is balance. But you cannot understand what balance is if you don't have some familiarity with the extremes.
Mm.
And so the point is not to always be love and light and positive vibes only, nor is it to always be scary, dark, twisted, and mildly insane, right? Um, there's a middle ground there that acknowledges that both extremes exist. And part of that acknowledgement is the radical notion that they're actually the same thing.
Oh,
And
yes.
we have been the ones who've been driving it into extremes on either
Wow.
side. So, yeah, there dark things in the occult? Of course. There are, and there is also indescribable light in the occult. The same
But
way
like
as there is
the
in
whole,
life.
like we were saying earlier, it's all good. Even
It
the
is.
dark and it's all good.
It is. It's all miraculous and it all deserves reverence. Because if we it's the only way to find the middle path. And that really is the whole point of all of Hermeticism and Kabbalah and I would argue virtually every path on the face of the planet is trying to get us to come to terms with the things that go bump in the night so that we can understand that those things are really they're aspects of us. They live in all of us.
Mm.
The good, the bad, the indifferent, all of it is within, and it's all really the same thing. And it all depends on how we interact with those aspects of ourselves, if that makes sense. Um,
It makes so much sense that I can't even get into the levels. I could be on the call with you for another hour, but okay. I want to give you a little bit of your time back and just say thank you. This interview, I've enjoyed it so very much. I can't wait to connect with you again and get another reading.
yeah, love
I
that.
I am going to share this with as many people as I can. I've been telling people in my magic groups about your book, and there's definitely been a lot of interest. They're like, "What? That exists? That's so cool!" I'm like, "Yeah, here's a
You,
link." You
thank
know,
you.
I'm wishing you all the success, and I can't wait to see what you do next. Are
Thank
you
you.
working on any projects?
Yeah, I've actually been. I'm finally at a place where I feel recovered enough to begin working on some new things. So I yes, please do stay tuned. I've got some more stuff coming, several ideas. I just have to pick which one I want to dive into first.
Hmm, hmm.
But yeah, definitely more tarot related stuff.
Cool.
Um, probably going to be some more music related stuff. So
Let's
I
connect. I've
hmm?
got some. Let's connect on music.
Yeah. Oh, I would definitely love that very much. And yeah, thank you so much for everything, for this for the conversation here, which has been just absolutely delightful. For the opportunity to connect with you several times and read for you, that is always a privilege. I don't take it lightly, and it means the world to me. And for the support with the feedback on the book and you telling other people about the book, that is the absolute highest compliment. So thank you, Kay. I really appreciate that, and I really appreciate the opportunity to sit and talk with you today.
Thank you so much. Well,
Well,
I hope you enjoy the rest of your day, and we'll definitely keep in touch.
yeah, that sounds great. Thank you so much.